whenever we like bump into someone or someone else is in the wrong, I do find myself being, oh, sorry. It just comes out of us. I think it's just a natural reaction for us.
How do you say this?
Daneger and Stacey.
No, Danger and Stacey.
Daneger and Stacey.
No, it's Danger.
Daneger and Stacey.
Danger and Stacey.
Daneger and Stacey.
How about you?
Daneger and Stacey.
Danger and Stacey. How do you say the name of this YouTube channel?
It definitely is a good question, and it is a common one. We do find that people from Australia and New Zealand seem to get it, but Europeans seem to call us Daneger, or call me Daneger. Stacey's an easy one. So that's kind of the story. That's the background. In hindsight, would we have done that? I don't know.
I met these two travel YouTubers in Antigua recently. I've been following them for a while, and I remember in the beginning, I too had a hard time figuring out how to say their channel name. Was it Daneger and Stacey or Danger and Stacey? Let's get the explanation once and for all.
So my name is Dane, but my nickname growing up has always been Danger. So the play on words with our channel name Danger and Stacey is spelt Daneger. That's where we get the danger from.
People always ask, why Danger? You know, where did that nickname come from? And it's because he's always been like a bit of a daredevil ever since growing up, and he still is. So that's the reason behind it.
Okay. So he comes up with the crazy adventures and tries to lure you into it.
Lure me in. Yeah, that's correct.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
That's it.
This episode is supported in part by Hotels25.com. It's a website that helps you find the best prices on hotel rooms and guest houses and hostels around the world in one simple search. It's Hotels25.com. I met Dane and Stacey on a press trip with around 30 other content creators to Antigua and Barbuda in the Caribbean recently. And when I saw Dane and Stacey in the airport in London, it was like meeting two people that I knew very well, because I've been subscribed to their YouTube channel since they launched it a couple of years ago. Dane and Stacey are full-time travelers and content creators from New Zealand. In fact, I was in Krakow, Poland when they uploaded a video from this beautiful city, and I reached out to them, but they already left. In this episode, I finally get a chance to sit down with them and have a chat about their nomadic lifestyle, how to travel, and how they make this, what many people would call a dream life, work. Produced by radioguru.co.uk, my name is Palle Bo, and this is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
I am so glad that we get a chance to sit down here in beautiful Antigua, and I was so happy to hear that you were a part of this trip, because I've been following you guys for years, and I'm one of those subscribers that click the alarm bell, so I keep getting alarms saying now you uploaded a new video, and just this morning I got another email saying now there's a new video out. I feel that you're so productive and just keep putting out stuff.
It's a tough schedule to keep. We were in the probably the 12 months leading up to about where we are now. We were doing 3 videos a week, and that is for people that essentially started as digital nomads and still are. That was a tough schedule to start, and we kind of thought that we had to do that. So maybe that was more what we thought was a requirement, what we thought we had to do in order to stay relevant, to sort of keep growth, to be productive. But then I think, like any nomad, you reach a point where you sort of realize you have to find that life balance. We're fortunate that we've turned a passion into a business, but if you just keep on the business, the passion, you don't want that to go, especially when your face is in front of a camera. They have to coexist, and so it was all about finding that balance. And Stace, probably you struggle with moving faster than I do, right?
Yeah, I do. I find the hardest thing for me is not having a routine. So when we are moving fast, I can't eat healthy or go to the gym or do all the things that kind of make me happy. So I do find that a little bit tough, but yeah, we always have purpose in everything that we do.
Yeah. And we'll get into the way you travel and how fast you travel in a bit. But I can totally relate to that, because doing this podcast is something I started out of passion, and it's still a passion project for me. But I spent so much time doing it, and I try to put out an episode every week. And whenever I do these interviews like this one, I put them out on a Friday. But that's not on a regular basis that I have these interviews, and that's sort of a bonus episode. But my regular travel episode, I spend maybe 1 or 2 days editing one episode. So you have to have the passion, and thankfully, even though I've done radio and sound editing for 34 years, I started in radio in '85, way before you guys were born.
Only 1 year.
Yeah. It started as a hobby for me, and it's still a hobby, and thankfully I can still have this passion. But it is work as well. Yeah,
it definitely is. And I think the hardest part as well is then, I mean, everybody, it's kind of cliche, but everyone does talk about this work-life balance, this, work hard, play hard. But I never thought that it would define our lives as much as it probably does right now, and especially, in this beautiful location that we are now. And as much as we've got a lot of free time, there's a lot of activities and stuff that are going on here that we can film and capture. And when we do have a couple of hours where, the instinct is to lay on a beach or have a shower and sort of relax, we're straight back to the room, memory cards into laptops. Stacey's working on other projects and stuff. And it's just being productive with the downtime, and then trying to find that time. Like, when is that downtime? And we actually... These days we almost have to schedule it in. Be like, right, no, this morning or tomorrow morning, that is the time that we're gonna sleep. We're gonna, it's something that you have to put in place.
Yeah.
I never thought that we would be those people that we have to stop and actually remind each other, like, okay, this is a moment. If we're watching a sunset or something and we happen to be filming, we have to tell each other, okay, stop for just a minute, put the camera down, and let's appreciate the moment, so that we do keep that passion.
Let's go a little bit back and let me hear something about your background. Where are you from, and when did you start traveling and all that?
So we're from New Zealand, Auckland, New Zealand, and in terms of our backgrounds, we've always loved traveling, both of us. We both grew up taking trips with family, and then Dane went off and did some solo travel as well. And in terms of work backgrounds, we both come from advertising backgrounds, which is probably why we're so kind of productive, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, we both love travel, and as soon as we met, that was kind of like the thing that brought us together. And so since day one, we just...
When was that?
That was 5 years ago now. Yeah, and we just started taking lots of trips together, and that became our thing. And people at our jobs, at our work, would say, "Oh, you're off on holiday again, are you?" So that's when we kind of went, how do we make this like a long-term thing?
Yeah, so we met 5 years ago, started with the travels, and then it was about 2.5 years ago. So as much as we consider ourselves content creators now, and a lot of people who are content creators are nomadic, and they probably don't realize that that's, a definition that defines them in a way. We went the other way, and our goal from the outset was, how do we sort of travel full time? How do we become nomads first? And that's where our background sort of led us to do, what does it take to make money online kind of thing. And my passion at the time was sort of making little travel videos for us. And then that's when, maybe 6 months into the digital nomad thing, that we sort of thought, okay, can we turn a passion into something that could potentially become a business and, level up, take this sort of a step ahead. But Stacey's probably more the digital nomad out of the two of us, in the sense that she's still to this day a freelance graphic designer.
Yeah, so I I'm finding it a bit of a struggle at the moment to balance the travel and the design, just because if we're out filming, that's a full day out of the office for me. But it's something that I love and have loved for a long time. So it's not something that I see myself letting go of. But yeah, it's an awesome job to have, and it does make it easy to be on the road. My clients are all back in New Zealand, and they understand like the time difference and everything, which is great. But I love that I can do it anywhere in the world, anywhere with good internet, basically. Yeah.
You have a super popular YouTube channel. How many subscribers are at this time in May 2019?
I believe we're sitting just over 87,000 at the moment. I believe. I mean, of course, I know. Actually, I looked this morning and was like, oh, well, we ticked over at 87,000. So, yeah, it's 80K.
Well, in fact, while I'm editing this, less than a week after our chat, the number has grown to 88,321, and I'm sure it's grown even more by the time you hear this. With that many subscribers, they're able to make good money from their channel.
Yes, is the short answer is yes, but the detailed answer is exclusively through YouTube, no. So we do make good money from YouTube. If we were holed up in Southeast Asia somewhere, being budget conscious, and we just did YouTube alone, we could make things work. Yeah. But the reality of, I suppose, anything when you're making money is if making money from something, if you treat it as a business and you diversify as much as you possibly can, and I think that's where the real sweet spot is. And maybe because of our backgrounds from the outset, from maybe 20 videos in, we had affiliate marketing laid in place. We sort of knew that there could be a purpose behind our videos. We were doing SEO keyword research at a time when most people with 20 videos making travel were probably just still finding their feet. And I mean, we were as well, don't get me wrong. Please nobody go back and watch our 20th video, because it will not be good. But we always had the strategy and the business mind underlining it, but then the goal is to not let that for that to be the business, and then the filming and what you see in our experiences are the passion, if that kind of makes sense.
Before we continue, I just want to say a deep, heartfelt thank you to the people who wrote a review in iTunes or your podcast app. This means so much to me. Thank you.
So in terms of how we travel, we started out traveling quite slow, and we've never been like the budget kind of conscious travelers. We sit in a middle ground. So yeah, we started out renting apartments for 3-ish months, and that was good, but we sort of found by the end of the 3rd month that we were quite ready to move on and explore. Hungry for more. So that's how it all started, and then kind of over time we just decided to make it a little bit faster. We were able to adjust and like adapt to that as well. So before I was talking about routine. So now we know what works for us, so we can speed it up a little bit. And now slowing down is maybe we spend about 3 weeks somewhere, and that's our kind of like sweet spot. But in terms of where we've been, that's a good question. We started out in Southeast Asia. Chiang Mai was our first stop. That's where we bought our one-way ticket to, as most people do when they're researching the nomad life. Yeah. So we traveled around a lot. Vietnam, Philippines. I can't recall off the top of my head. But it was the end of the first year that we went to Europe.
Yeah.
And that's where our eyes sort of opened and went, wow, we've still got a lot more of the world that we want to see.
And Europe is the same region, but it's so different if you're in Belgrade or if you're in Paris. It's two different worlds.
It definitely is, and I think the thing is New Zealanders as well is that when people from New Zealand do, that's the far away place. When somebody says they're going on annual leave, where are you going? Oh, I'm going to Europe. Everybody, that conversation still happens like, oh, wow, you're going for it. But speak to anybody that's lived anywhere near Europe, and it's like, oh, I'm popping to Poland for the weekend. Or it's so normal. So
it's so funny for me to grow up there. Europe? That's not exotic.
No, exactly right. But so for a standard New Zealander, when or anyone sort of in that region, if you go to Europe, that's when everybody takes their full 3 weeks or their full 4 weeks leave, and they go and they hit like 12 countries in a row, and they move fast, full holiday mode, and they come back and they look exhausted. Because that's sort of the only way as a Kiwi that you can get out there and see it. So,
and I'm pretty sure that a lot of people from Europe would say, "You're from New Zealand. Why would you ever want to leave? That's paradise on earth."
That's 100%. It's quickly followed by Lord of the Rings, the All Blacks, or just the beauty of the country, or all three.
I hear that all the time. I have not been to neither Australia or New Zealand yet, but that's so high on my bucket list.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth it. I think we have. I think other people would probably have explained it to us as just a relaxed. Just a chill. We don't. I think this explains us a little bit as well. We try not to get too antsy. We're not really overly opinionated. We're the type of people that if something goes wrong at a restaurant and somebody comes up and says, "How was the meal?" You go, "Yeah, no, great, thank you," and they walk off, and then you sort of think, "Well, it wasn't really ideal." Whereas other cultures, other places, it would be instinctive to say, "Well, that was a bit cold," or "Can you change?" We just go with the flow a lot, I would say.
It's not because you're super Canadian polite?
I can't comment because I haven't been to Canada. You have. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, whenever we like bump into someone or someone else is in the wrong, I do find myself, oh, sorry. It just comes out of us. I think it's just a natural reaction for us.
And what you're saying, Stacey, about the speed of traveling, the way I do it, by the way, I've been full-time nomadic about the same time length as you. I started in July 16, and I started out with 11 countries in 2 months in eastern part of Europe, and I'd never been to that, even though I grew up in Europe. I'd never been to the eastern part, and I just loved it. But then I sort of was... I was getting full. I was mentally having a hard time absorbing all the stuff that happened. So the way I travel now is I go fast sometimes, and then I slow down and stay a month here and there, and then I get the hunger back, and then I go and explore more, because I don't want to see myself at some point in New Zealand saying, "Oh, that's a beautiful waterfall," but I've seen something similar before, and that would be a crime for me. So I see it as sort of as a sprint where I go fast and then slow down, and go fast again and slow down. Is that somewhat of the same way you do it?
That's a perfect way to describe it, and we can completely relate to that feeling as well. I think especially when we got to Europe, and you see a lot of the old towns, and you see a lot of cathedrals, and you see some beautiful cobblestone streets, but then you see a lot of those things back to back to back, and you do find yourself feeling almost a little bit guilty because you're not taking it in, and you're not taking the time to be like, wow, this is beautiful and different and unique, and what's the story behind this specific cathedral or cobblestone street. So I think the way that you've just described it is the perfect balance, because it's just human nature. You need that time to kind of reset and remember to appreciate.
I'm not going to ask you the question, what's your favorite place, the question that we get the most, because...
that means you're a traveler also.
Yeah, oh yeah. No, I'd like to ask you, is there any place that you didn't expect much of, and then it surprised you in a positive way, and say, hey, this is good?
Yeah, well, a lot actually. We have tried to make the effort. You mentioned Paris before. Together, we haven't been to Paris. I went when I was very young. Doesn't count. We haven't been to Rome. We actually have skipped a lot of the typical places that those Kiwis that I referenced that they're going to. But we've tried to go to places that we have heard good things about, that are up and coming, or just don't get the exposure on the map. And we like to be able to show our audience that they can see that. And the place I think that stands out, I'm going to say for me, but I feel like it might be for us, was Krakow in Poland.
I knew you were going to say Krakow. And it's so funny. Actually, I noticed that your video from Krakow, where you're talking about, is it street food or just food, is one of the most viewed videos, and it's so funny. I was in Krakow when you posted that video, and I reached out to you. I thought, oh, you're posting it now, so you were probably here a couple of weeks ago, and I sent you a message saying, are you still here? I'd like to meet and do this interview that we're doing now. But you wrote back that you already left. So yeah, I absolutely loved Krakow as well. I wanted to spend 2 weeks and then 2 weeks in Warsaw, but I decided to spend 3 weeks in Krakow because I just loved it.
Yeah, we actually heard such good things about it. We rolled the dice and we just booked 1 month in an Airbnb, which is doing that in advance without a lay of the land is quite a risky thing. But we've learned over time that neighborhoods almost are more important to us now than cities in a way. Getting that right, getting that grounding right, that location, that walkability is so perfect. And in Krakow, I think maybe it was a combination of getting that right and then the way that you sort of explained the question. And we're somewhere that we thought might be good. Some people had told us it might be good, and then we got there and it just, everything was just so... it just fell into place, and we just vibed with it in a way that it's probably difficult to put into words, but we tell people go and feel it, you know.
Yeah.
We just stumbled upon this little neighborhood. We thought it would be all right because it was kind of on the outskirts of where most people have heard of. And it was amazing. There were these craft beer places. There was this river that ran through the middle, and it was just like the food and the people. And it was summertime. The sun was shining. There were a lot of things happening on, like at the same time, festivals, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, and I think location as well was where we got that right. So we were just outside the Jewish quarter, like Stacey mentioned, but we had a gym that was close by. There was a good supermarket within walking distance. There was a shopping mall that had a cinema. I don't think we'd been to the cinema for a year before that, and so
it was not one of those where they synchronize with one guy dubbing. That's the way they do it on TV. It drives me crazy. You could sort of hear the background. No, that was original sound.
Yeah, it was original sound, and so we had a local daily feeling. We had probably more local pricing, accessibility to the Jewish quarter, and then we were right on a tram. Literally 10 paces away from our front door was the tram tracks that would take us to the Old Town, which is a sort of thing that you want to see maybe once or twice over your period of staying there, but not the place that we ever want to live in. So we had these three elements to it that just seemed to, the stars were aligned when we booked that Airbnb. I think
I was there during the World Cup, and I found this sports bar with 200 English fans. So I had a blast every time they were playing, and they were singing, and it was so good up until they lost.
Yeah. So we had a very similar experience actually. So by that point, which is probably maybe what you're talking about, was when we'd already gone north. We were in Sopot, up in Sopot in Gdansk or Gdańsk. I can't remember how that. Yeah. And we went out to film a video that day because we'd heard from some locals there was this, somewhere to go and see off the path. And I said to Stacey in the morning, if we, Poland are playing today, if we come across a bar, or if somebody invites us into their house, which apparently is quite a Polish thing, we're going to go with it. And, this is a day that whether we film it or not, you and I want this experience. I think that'll be fun. And we filmed this video. We're mostly finished, and we walked past somewhere in this little...
Let me just jump in here. This was, I think he was about to say, like a little bar. This was not a bar. This was a hole in the wall in the middle of this random neighborhood. The doorway was black. You kind of had to poke your head in. So I sent Dane in first to kind of like scope the scene and everything. He came out and he says, there's about 3 people in there. And I was thinking, this is not the place for me. I don't know if I can hack this. Anyway, he convinces me. He just strolls in confidently, and we sat down with the locals. Luckily, one person did speak English, and the next thing you know, we're doing vodka shots with them. We've got the Polish flag painted on our face. Awesome. Unfortunately, they did lose, but it was just...
I was in Krakow that night, and I was hoping that I was really rooting for the Polish.
Yeah, despite the loss, they handled it well, and it was just one of those those experiences that I'm glad that we walked through that dark doorway and we just met the locals. We did as they were doing, and it was one of our best experiences, I think.
I have a rule for myself on this journey that whenever I'm in doubt if I should do something, I say yes. And unless it's something completely stupid that would get me killed or ruin me or something like that. But should I do this or not? And then my default answer would be, yeah, sure. And that has given me some amazing serendipity moments where I was not expecting anything like it. Do you have any rules set for yourself? Any travel advice that you could give the people listening to this and me?
Well, that's a really tough one. I mean, we don't have a hard and fast rule on saying yes to everything. Not like, is it Yes Man the movie? Is that what it's called? Where he says yes to. I think it's a tricky one because we like to allow ourselves to be open to the potential of opportunity, but the trick again, the hard thing with traveling so much, and you might have similar experiences as well, that often saying yes can put you in a very unsafe situation, or a situation that you will be ripped off, or somebody that is lovely to you on face value and has bad intentions that might not be serious, but it might just be to fool you out of some money or something. So it's almost like the more that we travel, the more open we are, but also the more closed we are. And I think if anything, I'd say that our rule is to be open to the possibility of both things potentially happening. And maybe we analyze things maybe too much now. I don't know. What would you say?
Yeah, we do. That's a fine line for us. I think the best way to sum it up would be just to trust your instincts. If something feels off or wrong, don't do it. Just don't do it. But at the same time, if you're feeling borderline about something, we also know what that can bring and what the feeling can be if you do go for it and it does work out well. Like, it's a great feeling. So yeah, I just come back to always trust your instincts.
Yeah, and also I heard someone say you should. It's kind of like a traffic light. You shouldn't be green and to be too careless, and you shouldn't be red and too scared and look like a victim. You should be alert and use your common sense. That was a guy from Cape Town that gave me that advice.
That would have sounded excellent in a South African accent, I bet.
Oh, yeah. It's coming up on one of the future episodes of the Radio Vagabond. Stay subscribed.
When we come back in a minute, we'll dive more into how they travel and where they've been. Produced by radioguru.co.uk. This is the Radio Vagabond. My name is Palabo. Stay with us. In the episode a few days ago, I asked you to send me an email telling me what you're doing while you're listening to this podcast. And I got some very nice emails from a bunch of you. It's been interesting to read where you are and what you're doing. Here's one of the emails. It came from Ian in Australia. He writes, "Hi Palle, I'm a regular listener and I heard podcast 124 this morning and I wanted to let you know where I'm listening from. I'm in Sydney, Australia, and I listen to your podcast on my commute to and from work, approximately 40 minutes each way. I'm fascinated by the variety of places you visit. I travel a couple of times a year, and my country total is currently at approximately 50. Keep up the great work. Regards, Ian." Thank you for your email, Ian, and the rest of you that got in touch. If you also want to drop me a line and maybe have your email read out, please drop me a line telling me what you're doing right now. Please send it to this special address, listener@theradiovagabond.com. You can also send me a voice message on WhatsApp on the number +45 40 105 105, and I might even play that on the show. It's +45 40 105 105. Back to Dane and Stacey. Not only are they a YouTube team, they're also a couple. They work, sleep, live, and travel together. They're more or less together 24/7. So I wanted to ask them what that's like, if it can get difficult sometimes. It was difficult for me to phrase that question when they sit there right in front of me, smiling on my balcony in Antigua. Hear how I'm struggling the next 23 seconds.
You seem like a super great team, but you are a couple, and just say if you don't want to answer this, but is there any points where you have thought, because you had this channel together, let me see how to phrase this in a nice, decent way.
If only there was a video of us sitting here both smirking and giggling as you're slowly trying to reveal this question.
Yes.
That was the short answer.
It is. It's a funny one. Traveling together, working together, living together, and just being together 24/7.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny. The more that we travel and the longer we spend together, the more proactive we have to be about separating work and us living our lives and being in a relationship. It is a hard one, and we do row about it every now and then, as I'm sure most people would. But we've sort of, over time, managed to put some rules in place, I guess, that we know work for us. So there are moments where we sit down together and we literally have a business meeting, and we talk things over, we bring our own sort of like points to the meeting, and we have a real business meeting.
With an agenda.
With an agenda. So there are also, on the flip side of that, we also have to schedule in when we put the work aside and we go, right, this is a night for us, no cameras, no nothing. So it's a funny one. Our lives have changed so much, but we're still learning every single day how to make this life work for both of us.
Yeah.
What's the most annoying part about Dane?
Oh, good question. Oh.
Dane is already starting thinking what he's going to answer.
Yeah. I wish he was going first.
Nothing, he's just perfect.
Yeah, I should have started with that. Yeah. He is pretty perfect. I think the hardest part, or the thing that pops up the most, is he's so good at what he does, and he's so critical in his thinking and strategic that sometimes I have to remind him that no, this is not the time for the business meeting. Let's talk to each other like we're fiancés, like we're in a relationship. And I think that's a line that's blurred for both of us, though, not just Dane.
I would have to admit that I would take that one on the chin and say that that's very true. So we mentioned advertising as our past job, and I used to do a lot of not necessarily presenting, but a lot of business. I had to be a bit of a chameleon, if that makes sense. You had to change your colours to suit the style of the conversation, and sales roles and stuff as well in my background, and all related around the advertising clicky world. Sometimes when I get excited about something, or I get, I sort of get on a real business roll, I'll start thinking, and my mind just starts, it's operating at just an insane level. And Stacey's a little bit, I don't want to say slower. That's not true. But maybe I'm just a little bit more elevated sometimes when I get on that roll, and I can start from what is us having a couple's conversation to me like. Tuning my business voice, it's like I'm on the phone call and I'm having, and I just get this look or something back that just tells me, oops. Or sometimes I'm just so in the mood I don't even notice, and then that's when Stacey sometimes has to say, well, that was a great business conversation, Dane. Can we now, So that's just the reality when those lines start to blur.
Like I mentioned, I met Dane and Stacey on a recent trip to Antigua and Barbuda. In fact, there will soon be episodes about the adventure in this Caribbean paradise. But I also met some very interesting content creators, and conversations with a few of them will be out as bonus episodes the following Fridays. Meet Instagram Ninja and Country Counter Traveling TomTom, the organizers of the Traverse conferences, Paul Dow and Michael Ball, and the world's most successful female travel blogger, Adventurous Kate. The Radio Vagabond is supported in part by Hotels25.com. It's a website that helps you find the best prices on hotel rooms around the world. Hotels25.com.
It's time to wrap up, but just before we go, is there an end date to your traveling?
That's also a good question, and we don't have an end date. We don't know. This is a very common question, and maybe we should think about a better answer. But at this point, we don't have an end date. We do know that we want to eventually slow down, maybe have a base somewhere that we can just have all of our things and fly to and from. But
yeah, because I guess you're in your early 30s, something like that.
I am. Stacey's just a little bit younger, but
yeah, at that age, a lot of people would maybe we should start a family and all that, and that would make this lifestyle not impossible but more tricky.
Yeah, I in a sense almost did things a little bit backwards. I maybe grew up quite fast. I bought a house from working in advertising. I didn't go to university. I started working, and I think when I was 22 I bought a house while my friends were still in university, and I sort of went down this very grown-up, professional, influenced by my older work peers route. And so I still have that house today, and that is rented, which is great. So I feel a lot of almost safety in that I did that first, and then it was when I reached that critical point, like a lot of people do with travel, that I decided, man, I hit that accelerator much faster than I should have as a teenager, and then into my early 20s, and then I sort of stepped backwards. So knowing that we have that makes us feel safe in that sense, but that whole speed of travel and having a base is, I think, it's just so topical with anybody that has been a nomad for probably maybe 1.5 to 2 years. It's a common conversation when we sit around a table as well with our peers, with other YouTubers or creators as well. It's the same yarn with all of us, and nobody ever has an answer.
Monday morning, we're back in Guinea-Conakry in Africa for another episode from this leg of my journey. My name is Palapo, and I gotta keep moving. See ya.